Good afternoon. It's good to see so many familiar faces and the exhibits and speakers. This is a very impressive conference. So we are very happy to be a sponsor. And when I look at the agenda, so many great topics and innovations and speakers. Virginia should be very excited what's going on. And just real briefly, I wanted to touch on many partners in this room that we work with. At Dominion Energy, I work with a team that focuses on energy efficiency programs and making houses better for occupants and reducing costs through energy savings. And we have, the state has been very focused on improvements in that area. I know beginning in 2018 with some legislation and again in 2020 with the Virginia Clean Economy Act, we have been very fortunate to see a growth in programs. In 2017, we had about 7 energy efficiency programs for residential and business customers. We've expanded that now to over 37, and we've got another 9 before the commission for approval. And so what do those programs do? Look at housing. We've got audit programs, we've got new construction programs that incent builders to build to an Energy Star level or for customers to apply for rebates. So as you go through all the innovation and the technology, stop when you get to a point when you check out Dominion Energy's site under the Save Energy tab, whether for your business or for residential customers. I'm thinking about some of the income qualifying and assistance programs where we're able to provide weatherization. And we utilize a network of providers, that many of which are here today, to assist folks with that. So check out the tab. A lot of people don't recognize a lot of the programs that are out there that can provide benefits. Just to give you a feel for it, we're in 500 retail stores throughout the state where we discounted over 10.5 million LEDs and over 50,000 appliances. So encourage you to look for those opportunities. Really, again, thank you for all the participants here and the opportunity to sponsor this event.
All right, I now have the pleasure of introducing our next plenary keynote speaker. And I have with me here Mel Jones from the Virginia Center for Housing Research at Virginia Tech, and Vaughn Poller, who is the board chair of HousingForward Virginia. And they will be leading a discussion with our next keynote speakers from Symbium. And we have joining us virtually today, Abhijeet Mohapatra, who is the co-founder and the CTO of Symbium, the computational law company. Symbium is disrupting how the public interacts with zoning laws, helping them plan their residential construction projects through intuitive web applications to ensure compliance with zoning laws and a streamlined permitting experience. As an immigrant student in the United States, he experienced firsthand the challenges and the complexity of navigating regulations. This inspired him to build software applications which democratize the access of data and regulations for the public. He co-invented dynamic logic programming, which enables compact representation of complex regulations in a manner that is amenable to automation and holds multiple patents related to efficient analysis of data and policies. He received his PhD in computer science from Stanford University and his BTech in computer science and engineering from IIT Kharagpur. Let me welcome Abhijeet.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We are Team Symbium, and welcome to the future of housing. My name is Abhijeet Mohapatra, and I'm one of the co-founders and the CTO of Symbium. With me on the call today is Linda Barrera. She's our Director of Product. Linda has an extensive planning background, having worked as a city planner and a planning commissioner. Our company Symbium offers a public-facing portal that enables anyone in the country to research a property's history, to view what exists currently on a property, and to explore what's possible on any California property. Our origin story dates back to Stanford University when I met my co-founders there. I was a grad student at that time doing my PhD in computer science. At Stanford, we had a technological breakthrough that enables us to fundamentally disrupt the housing industry by drastically reducing the time and the complexity of researching what can be built, the permit application process, and the review of said applications. But before we talk about this breakthrough and how we can disrupt the housing industry, I'm going to hand it over to Linda, who's going to present a first-hand experience of the challenges faced in the home building process. Over to you, Linda, to talk about that.
Thank you, Abhijeet. Hey, everyone. Super excited to be here. As Abhijeet mentioned, before I joined Symbium, I was a city planner. And as a planner, I used to work the public counter 3 days out of the week. So what this really meant was that I was answering development-related questions. And my office looked like your typical permit center. I had a counter that I would stand behind, and there was a kiosk in the office where the applicant, the homeowner, developer, architect would come in and sign into the kiosk to put their name in the queue and wait about an hour or 2 hours to come and talk to me for about 10 minutes. Once they came over to talk to me, one of the main questions that I would always get would be, what can I do on this property? And after several visits to the permit center, adjusting the project, massaging it, making sure that it gets to the point where they are ready to submit. Once they submitted the application, it would be months for a review to finally get the permit. Now, this home building experience is broken. The laws and regulations are complicated. The bureaucratic hurdles that folks have to go through are extensive. And the time that it takes to actually get a permit is unnecessarily long. So now imagine for a minute, if you will, a world in which you can look up the property that you're interested in developing, know what has been permitted on the site, and be able to enter your scope of work and have a computer compute the regulations for you instantly. And never again have to wait hours to talk to a planner like me. Well, with Symbium, this is now a reality. And I'm actually going to hand it over to my colleague Abhijeet to talk to you about comp law, which makes this all possible. Over to you, Abhijeet.
Thanks, Linda. When I was an idealistic grad student, I used to think that you can point and click and build something on a property. As Linda mentioned, computational law is what makes it possible, computational law or comp law. It is a branch of computer science, specifically in artificial intelligence or AI, that is concerned with the mechanizations of laws and regulation. At Symbium, we take laws and regulations wherever they may exist and transform the knowledge contained within to a computer application with the end goal to enable the machine itself to automatically reason about compliance with those knowledge itself and to help with decision making. That's the promise of computational law. An example of a computational law system that most of you may be familiar with is TurboTax. TurboTax has the IRS tax code embedded within itself. And as you are providing details, it automatically computes the tax obligations. Now, systems like TurboTax are really cumbersome to build. It might take several months to build such systems. However, with the technological breakthrough that we had at Stanford, Symbium team can build such applications in a matter of days or few weeks. That's our claim to fame with respect to computational law. Imagine a future where within a single application, you have the planning code and the building code in its entirety embedded within that one application. You don't need to wait in line in the counter anymore. With the comfort of your couch, you can browse what's possible on your property, create a very high quality permit application, and you can reduce the time it takes for planners to later review your permit applications and decide on it. That is the promise of computational law that Symbium is bringing to the table. Computational law is an important but one of the components of an ideal citizen to government interaction. At Symbium, we are building what is called a government relationship manager, or GRM for short. There are 3 parts to a successful GRM. It all starts with empowering the public. As a first step, we need to build a solid bedrock of information, of high quality information. The first step is to enable the public to search for answers. Yes, it is true, many cities and governments publish data sets. That is not enough. There are services like Google and other similar search engines that provide links to gather information about the necessary answers. That is not enough today. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world where we want information at our fingertips. We want answers, not links and documents. So that's the first component of structured data and search as a part of GRM. We need to empower the public to find information for themselves so that they can review this information and take informed decisions. Having this bedrock of structured data enables multiple things. One of them is to enable us to build computational law applications. When there is data, only then can we build and connect regulations that can reason with that data. Imagine if we had all of the building code mechanized, but we didn't have data about properties or appliances or whatnot. There is no analysis that was made possible. No real life analysis that was made possible. Computational law is the second and a key important cog of GRM. Finally, the third component of a successful GRM is open transactions. Now, I will acknowledge that there are many transaction systems out there with the government. For example, permit tracking systems. Open transaction concept is not about just building a workflow. It is about building a workflow that is regulation enabled, that can guarantee success. One of the challenges that I have seen homeowners face and applicants face is multiple resubmissions of their permit. They forgot something or they made a mistake, and now the project review takes 1 more month. Why should that be the status quo right now? So that's what open transaction is seeking to disrupt. We built an example of this GRM in California, and that is live for properties in California right now at Symbium.com. Now my colleague is going to show you a demo of what that experience looks like and how we can disrupt public interaction with the government. The experience starts with a user typing in an address to locate a parcel. In addition to performing address searches, somebody can also search for a property based on its characteristics. Note that as I typed in an address for a property in San Jose, instantly I have the information at my fingertips. On the left-hand side, you have information about the property, and on the right-hand side, you have a site plan with the parcel's boundaries and the buildings on the parcel right away. You can browse minute information from government sources about the assessed values, about how many bedrooms and bathrooms are there on the property. All of this is verified government data. You can view information about buildings, what forms are important, the zoning, and most importantly, the building permit history. Now, this is a very key piece of information that is required for anyone embarking on a construction project. It is also important when somebody is looking to buy or sell a property as a part of the disclosure process. Today, if somebody had to find permit history, they would have to follow multiple links to permit tracking systems to dig this information out. Imagine this experience where all of this is consolidated and presented in a singular experience. That's the first component of the GRM for Symbium.com, enabling users to get quick answers. One of the broader implications of having information in such a consolidated fashion is multifold. First, as I mentioned, it enables users to get answers and information right away instead of trying to follow links to find information. Second, it relieves the burden on public officials to not have to deal with so many FOIA requests and Freedom of Information Act requests, because people are now empowered to find that information themselves about information that should be public in the first place. A third important consequence of having information in this consolidated form is to enable regional innovation. I'm happy to announce that Symbium is going to be opening up its APIs later this year to the public once the foundational service has been established in the different states. And an outcome of this effort would be to enable educational institutions like Virginia Tech and George Mason University, their students, to build civic tech and gov tech applications to help their communities. Symbium doesn't want to be the monopoly in creating these useful applications. We want to build a bedrock, a foundation of data and rules that will enable people to develop smarter applications and a smarter city. At this point, I would like to take a pause and hand it over to Mel and Vaughn to have any initial questions and discussion around this before we talk about the next cog of GRM, which is computational law.
Thanks, Abhijeet. Thank you. So, Abhijeet, in looking at the short demo you just did, can you tell our audience how Symbium is different than, say, a GIS?
Absolutely, Vaughn. That's a great question. GIS, like any, so there are three primary differences between Symbium and a GIS system. First, the ability to deal with data. Now, a GIS system or a GIS layer is simply a presentation of data on a map. It is geo-coordinated, it is coordinated with geographical coordinates, and that's how it correlates a property. The same GIS system can enable users to view data in multiple ways. What is different about how Symbium is different from a GIS system is Symbium merges and standardizes the information that is from different GIS systems. There could be a GIS system for zoning, there could be a GIS system for permitting, there could be a GIS system for something else. Symbium is making these systems talk to each other, having a common framework of providing information. So that's the first distinction between GIS systems and Symbium. The second is about regulations and providing context. What GIS systems are very good at is providing a static context. For instance, the lot area of this parcel is 2,000 square feet. That's the kind of static information that can be very well presented in a GIS system. However, when you want to present a regulation such as the setbacks are 10 feet when the building is 5 feet from some other building, this context cannot be captured in a GIS system. This kind of a formulaic information cannot be captured in a GIS information without significantly extending its capabilities. The third difference is how end users can interact with the GIS system. Now, the GIS system is like a database. To be able to ask any kind of questions of a database, you need to have the sophisticated know-how of interacting with that database, learning how to query that language. At Symbium, you don't need that. It's a very simplified user experience where you can pose queries right in a very user-friendly manner. So those are the three differences between Symbium and a GIS system.
Thanks, Abhijeet. I'm also wondering if you would quickly demonstrate how folks can search by characteristic and describe, maybe one or two characteristics that folks would want to search by. We're very used to going into a tax assessment system or a web GIS system and typing in the address very perfectly to get a result. But I think one thing that you mentioned that really differentiates you is being able to search based on characteristic.
Absolutely. Linda, do you mind clicking on the search icon on the page? Yeah, let's go to symbium.com, landing page. Let's click on advanced search. On this page, instead of finding a property or narrowing down a property by address, you can search by the different regions, which county, which city. Let's search for San Mateo County, for instance, Linda. This is a Bay Area county. And now let's try to narrow it down. Let's open up the property information filter and narrow and look for lots between 2,000 square feet and 5,000 square feet. So it automatically gives you all the parcels, and if you zoom in, it's going to show you the specific parcels which satisfy the search criteria. Not only can you search by property characteristics like lot area, you can also search by the land use available on those properties. So it instantly gives you information about parcels that meet all of these different characteristics. You can also search for parcels that lie within a flood zone, that lie within a fire hazard zone. This is important from a regulatory standpoint. You can also search for parcels that lie within a specific distance from transit. This is important in California because it can affect parking regulations. Any information that is present on a property page can be searched by. So that is the power of this ability to search by characteristics rather than just the address.
Thanks so much, Abhijeet. I'll let you continue on to the next very exciting topic that we're having lots of discussions about in Virginia at this moment.
Absolutely. Excited to get that session started, Mel. So as I mentioned, this is the first step of ensuring a successful GRM kind of experience. An important consequence of setting up this solid bedrock of high quality structured data is the ability to build computational law or comp law applications on top of it. Linda is going to give you an example of how an application in California built by Symbium is streamlining the process of researching whether an accessory dwelling unit can be built on a property. Ladies and gentlemen, be prepared. This is a type of a user experience that you have never witnessed before. Linda, over to you for the demo.
Thanks, Abhijeet. So ADUs are a really hot topic in California right now. The state passed regulations a couple of years ago to streamline the process for ADU construction in order to deal with the extreme housing crisis that we're having here in California. So one of the big questions again is, can I build an ADU on this property? And Symbium gives you the answer instantly. So if you take a look here, this is Symbium build, where the answer to this question for this particular property is yes, an ADU is possible here. You'll see that there's property information here that we saw in the previous page and a few options that a user can take. You can either browse designs, sketch an ADU, or view an ADU report. So let's take a look at the designs. These designs are plans that have been uploaded by vendors, ADU vendors, construction folks, and the like. And you'll see as I hover over any one of these designs, it gets plopped onto the parcel map of that particular property. And I'm scrolling around to actually find in the city of San Jose, there are some pre-approved plans for ADUs that have been reviewed by the city. Here's one, let's choose it. You'll see that these plans have been pre-approved in the area, in the city that we've chosen, which means that the city has actually reviewed this plan set and has ensured that if somebody uses this plan, they will be able to streamline the process and move quickly through the review process because these plans have been pre-approved. What this means is that the time for getting an ADU reviewed and approved has been cut down from the 2 month, which is the minimum time that the maximum time that a jurisdiction has in order to approve an ADU. That 2 month period has been cut down to a couple of hours using Symbium Build and these pre-approved plans. So you'll see that there is also an option to sketch your own ADU. Let's say you don't want to actually go with a pre-approved vendor or a vendor that's been here on this list. You can sketch your own design and adjust the size of the ADU. You'll see as I move the levers here, the ADU changes in size. And you'll also see that at some points, the ADU changes color from blue to red. When there is a red ADU, you'll see that there's a warning that says that the ADU placement in this case has to be set back further from the property line. So we know that we've got to adjust our ADU in order to be compliant with the regulations. You can rotate this around to make sure that it fits the location where you most want it on your property. Symbium also provides information such as the estimated costs, and you can generate an ADU report which is one of my favorite parts of this tool here. So let's take a look at the reports. The reports give you regulatory information for each type of ADU that is specific to the property in question. So let's just take a look at one of these reports. You'll see that in the report, there are all of the design standards. These are the regulations for an ADU on this particular property. The maximum number that's allowed, things like the height, the size, and the setbacks that are required. You'll also find things like yard coverage and whether parking is required. Again, the information on costs is here, and it's also adjustable. So if you know that you are doing a different kind of construction type, like a prefabricated ADU, the estimated cost will go down a bit. And also, if you are in an area that has a different cost per square foot, like in San Francisco, the cost per square foot is a bit higher than the average in California, you can adjust the cost per square foot and see how that impacts the overall cost of the ADU. There's also information about other factors that impact the cost and the return on investment. These are things like the fees that you will have to pay in the city or the cost of materials, utility upgrades, things like that. There's also information about next steps. This includes the permitting process and the construction process in order to actually get an ADU to become a reality. So a couple of ways that this tool is actually being used right now, real life currently, is with realtors. Realtors use these reports in their disclosure packets when they are giving information to their clients about the prospects of a property. Symbium Build is also used in the city of San Francisco. The city of San Francisco actually requires applicants who are applying for an ADU to submit a Symbium report together with their application in order to streamline the review process for staff, because San Francisco has such complicated ADU regulations, which Symbium has actually encoded into Build. This way, a planner gets the application, gets the ADU report from Symbium, and is able to conduct their review in a matter of hours rather than months. So these are just a couple of real life examples, and you've currently seen the parcel specific analysis of an ADU on a property. Now I actually want to turn it over to being able to conduct this analysis regionally, citywide. So I'm actually going to navigate over to Symbium Build Plus. This is a tool that allows developers or policymakers to understand the impacts of proposed ADUs. So here you'll see that I'm in the city of Milpitas here. There are a little over 19,000 lots in this city. I'm going to apply a couple of filters to determine how many ADUs of a particular type. So let's choose detached ADUs with a particular square footage. So in California, the regulations indicate that an ADU of at least 800 square feet must be allowed on any residential property. So let's type in 800 square feet to see the impact of where in the city an ADU, a detached ADU of at least 800 square feet would fit. You'll see that the results indicate that there are about 4,000 lots in this particular city that can accommodate this kind of ADU of this particular size. When developers are using this tool, they can quickly identify the properties that they should target. And when policymakers or government officials are crafting policies, they can use these tools to have an instant view on the impact of the policy. How, if you reduce the size of the allowed ADUs to something a bit smaller, you can see that you'll actually be able to fit so many more ADUs in the city. This is a dynamic and instant reflection of such information that you put into Build. So with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to Vaughn and Mel for some additional questions.
So before you do that, Linda, and before you take it over, Vaughn and Mel, Linda, do you mind going over to Symbium.com? There is an important part of the experience that I do want to highlight. Can you go to Symbium.com? Yeah. So what Linda showed you is instant analysis based on the regulations. We can also get a better idea about the site plan by converting this property view into 3D mode, where you can tilt and see the built environment around it. In an instant, you can see the relative size of building heights. We have all that information. You can rotate and see if the property is on a slope. You can also turn on satellite view to see if your proposed ADU is actually going to be on a swimming pool, which would cost you a lot of money to demolish that. So all of these practical considerations can be provided through data itself. Now, Linda, do you mind going back to the build sketch page where we are there? So typically in California cities, the way they provide information about ADUs is through a handout. Compare that experience with the experience of being able to drag a particular ADU on a property. Linda, do you mind dragging it around the property? Here, at the comfort of your couch, an experience that you had never imagined, being able to perform and design your project like SimCity right at the comfort of your browser and your laptop. That is the promise of computational law that Symbium brings to the table, in this case for ADUs. Vaughn and Mel, please, over to you right now for a discussion around policies and regulations through this framework.
Thanks, Abhijeet. So I was wondering, and looking at the people who are gathered here at our audience, how many of you out here, by a show of hands, would find a tool like this useful in your locality? Can I see a show of hands? Yeah, so that looks to be maybe 40% or so. So Abhijeet, when thinking again about looking at it from the policy perspective, being able to look at vast areas, can you talk a little bit more about how if Symbium was to move out of California into other states, how you could apply it at that? What would the process be of bringing in another locality outside of California or another state outside of California?
It all starts with the first step, which is gathering the structured data, because the structured data is the bedrock of any analysis that we present. The first step would be getting all of this data into Symbium.com. So let's say, by the way, we would love to bring Virginia into Symbium.com. That's one of our goals for this year, and we would love to make that happen. So the first step always starts with data, bringing the data to Symbium.com, enabling people to view the information about their properties, permits, and so forth, so that they can at least have enough information to plan their projects. The next step, which is actually a bigger task, which is about crafting or codifying these laws and regulations and transferring the knowledge to Symbium.com. That is typically done on a municipality by municipality basis, and Symbium's technology enables this transfer of knowledge to be in a very swift and fast manner. We have planners on our team who work with city governments to actually encode the interpretation of these regulations directly into our applications. And so to that end, the kind of help that we need is really partnerships with local governments, local planning departments, and council of governments, if they may exist. The partnerships really entail us to get that data in a very smooth manner to ensure a sustainable data ecosystem. For us, permits really are a way for ensuring this data. And I know there are states that struggle with providing structured data. For us, the ability to, the notion of a permit goes beyond a pink slip for construction. The notion of a permit is an actor for change. Permits contain data to update the existing property information. So that's one way, we bring sustainability into the picture. To get Symbium to a new state, we start with the data. As I mentioned, that process is pretty fast and rapid. We have plans to move not just in Virginia, across the nation this year, but partnerships with local jurisdictions and municipalities make that process go faster. We also, require help from these municipalities when there are ambiguous regulations or ambiguities in regulations that we deal with. Symbium does the hard work in resolving these ambiguities, but when there is not a clear distinction to be made, we don't guess. We, in fact, highlight that ambiguity or that discrepancy to the municipality in question and work with them to resolve it. We've done that in a few instances, by the way.
Abhijeet, I wonder if you could could just talk a little bit about how Symbium developed the relationship with San Francisco, that San Francisco would actually require, a third party report as a part of their process. You have a group, very mixed group here, architects, planners, but then you also have folks who are representing the public, right? And they have a requirement to make sure that the public dollars are spent well, that this is a good investment, and that, they're choosing the right path. And so I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about how you developed that with San Francisco.
That's a great question, Mel. And there are two parts to the solution there. The first is the technology itself. The second is the partnership itself. So with respect to the technology, this is not like any other AI technology. This is what we call as an explainable AI. Not only can it tell you that the ADU is incorrectly placed, for example, it can tell you why exactly it is incorrectly placed, why the setbacks are 4 feet instead of 6 feet. It can cite specific code sections saying where in the municipal code it talks about that. That is beyond the realm of possibility for any other AI technology right now, because those types of algorithms and technologies are typically black boxes. Symbium, everything is transparent, you know exactly what you're getting. So that's the first part of technology. In terms of, why does San Francisco have so much trust in these applications, or why is it mandating a third-party service to be used by the residents? Well, the short answer is we convinced of something that could never be done before. They thought never was possible before. Our partnership with San Francisco began with an application that we built to show all places in San Francisco where a commercial use is allowed. Now, San Francisco's planning code is 2,000 pages long and changes 6 times a month. They never thought it was possible for all of these regulations to be automated. We, in fact, have ordinances in our system faster than it goes into the municipal code. We actually poll the system of updates to get the ordinance before it goes into effect. And we have it live into our system. So that really gave them confidence that this kind of a system can be built. In fact, in one of our presentations, a group of planners sat down and tried to challenge the system. They couldn't find a way where the system gave the answers wrong. In fact, they were pleasantly surprised that in some of the corner cases that came up in the city, the system handled the answers perfectly. That's one of the ways, you build trust in the system, by through a relationship, through working together with the city. Like when there is not enough data in the cities, we either flag that with the city to either find out a process to get that data or to work around it. If there isn't enough data, we can still do analysis, but in that case, the analysis would be a very conservative one.
Abhijeet, I'm gonna ask, are there any questions in the audience that you'd like to ask of our presenters? I think you've wowed them all. Wait, hold on.
Thank you. I think this work is fascinating. The question is always, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do you use this information to make the case for reconsidering restrictions, zoning challenges in areas that are not right now permitting ADU development? Or do you start to build units and go ahead and build accessory dwelling units that are not right now being used to densify our regions, that are used for other purposes, and then make the case that this can work in Virginia? I was trying to purchase a home in a location, which I won't name, that actually had an accessory dwelling unit built. And that was a real opportunity for me. But when I realized I couldn't use it for the purposes that I intended, I opted not to purchase the unit. And I see other use cases. This is an aside. Just when you're trying to purchase a home and you're trying to make sure that you don't have units, additional garages or other accessory dwelling units going over the property lines. There's just a lot of use cases for this kind of data as well. So what comes first?
So Linda, I will turn it over to you in a bit, but I'll just like to give my take on the problem. So my take is very much similar to, this is something that my advisor advised me about, Captain Kirk. Even if the system is broken, we have to solve for the residents. We can't get around it. I mean, yes, the change will come in the future, but we have to bring a change right about now. And that is how Symbium operates. Even if the current regulations are constrained, we have to start with providing clean data to the end user. Even if there are problems with data, even if the data is not guaranteed to be correct, let's flag that so that we can establish a process to clean it with residents' help, with the help of permits, with the help of contractors. Let's set up that ecosystem. If we don't acknowledge the issues with the data and regulations, we can never make progress there. So I would say my take is we should always start with the current state of affairs on trying to capture that and represent that in a digital environment so that we can begin to understand the problems with it and to work with it and to find better opportunities. That's going to then translate or trickle back into decision makers or policy makers to do all the kinds of cool hypothetical analysis that Linda showed. But the start of the funnel, in my opinion, always starts with the applicant, the home builder, the homeowner. Because they deal with the challenges firsthand. And then that is compounded at the city level. So I think the demand has to be first met at the customer level, the end user level. Any other thoughts, Linda, on that?
I would definitely agree that it starts with the people first, but looking at it from a government perspective, it is extremely valuable to be able to visualize the effects of policy before it gets implemented. There are not many tools like Symbium Build, which you saw earlier, that have that capability to be able to do a regional feasibility analysis of policies before they actually get implemented, so that you know if you are trying to meet your housing goals, by the next 10 years, 5 years, whatever the policy may be, you can actually see the impact of what is being proposed before making the decisions and going down a road that you might not have visibility on without something like the tools that Symbium is building.
I had a question about the cost to use this for your end users. What is that like for the end user of the program? And you talked for a minute with referring, I think, to a goal that you have around this technology being open source in a way. I think you were referring to it when you talked about having this available for universities. And so I just wondered if you could talk a little bit more about that to an audience like myself who are not, technology folks.
Happy to. So first of all, the cost of using Build is exactly $0. Anybody can just log on to symbium.com. You don't even need an account to perform that initial analysis. Just as in Google, you don't need an account to perform a search. Information access should be democratized, should be free, should be easy. We don't want to put a paywall in accessing information. We are going to be releasing APIs. We are not actually open sourcing the system. We are going to be releasing APIs to access data from the system. I just want to make that distinction clear. We have not, figured out the logistics of how we make that the API access, but there is going to be a tier of API access where the data is going to be free to a certain extent by students and universities to create those systems and to make it available to the public. In fact, our background, I was a grad student before coming to Symbium. I even mentor students right now during the summer to build applications, even at Stanford. So this is something that is near and dear to my heart. And if you have questions, would love to connect and figure out what the plan of action could be for universities and students to build such applications.
Fascinating, and just curious, making the regulatory research so simplified and so accessible, did you consider the adverse impacts on lawyers and their livelihoods? But the serious question is more that there is a lot going on at the federal level, pushing zoning changes at states and localities to embrace affordable housing developments. Also at the state level, there was just a second part of a report done by my brothers and sisters at McGuire Woods addressing prior zoning issues that prevented racial integration as well as more dense housing, and how we should address that going forward. So I wonder if, in addition to this being used by localities to assess their own needs, can it be used by advocates? Can you weaponize this so folks can be more effective at advocacy?
So let me answer the different parts of the question. So first of all, my co-founder is an attorney, and she was one of the brains behind how we commercialize this. So first of all, there is a part of the law which is 0 and 1, which is binary, and that is what Symbium seeks to automate. There is a part of law which is based on a case-by-case analysis, which is discretionary. I mean, we don't want to take that decision point from the planners, because it may not be possible to codify all parts of the law as 0 and 1. That is the goal, that is the ideal, but that's not the reality. So there is always an interesting synergy between the part of the law that can be automated, that is amenable to automation, and the part of the law which needs to be handed off to a human in the loop, in the system. That's always been our philosophy. I mean, thinking about completely automated systems is great, but we got to be practical here. We need a human in the loop to correctly, guide the systems and to, deal with these open texture issues, to deal with the issues about ambiguities and so forth, about interpretations. Regarding the question about regional analysis and, advocating policies, Symbium does not advocate one way or the other. Our goal is to, present the data so that other people can analyze or create policies as they choose and they see fit. The idea about, providing that regional search and the regional, so in fact, there is a feature in that service which allows you to hypothesize a regulation and to see what is the impact of that regulation as compared with the existing regulation. Now, that's a thing of the future that Symbium has already built. Now, you can overlay along with that analysis all different layers about that you care about, for instance, about income and so forth. The goal being to understand how you are providing housing. Now, Symbium is not advocating one way or the other, the kind of analysis that you do. It's just providing the data. It's for you to, to enable you to perform the kinds of analysis that you want to perform. But absolutely, if you're thinking about creating policies and, suggesting policies to the government, to the local governments, absolutely, this is a tool that we can definitely use for that. And just to give you the last part of your question, which is about the different interacting parts of regulation, the build application that Linda was demoing actually talks about the local laws as well as the state laws. California has state laws. In addition to that, there are local laws about restricting what the sizes of an accessory dwelling unit can be, where can it be placed, and so forth.
Thanks, Abhijeet. I really think that you have demonstrated how we can use this tool as planners to, let's say we want to integrate ADUs into our policy, and we know that the only way to make a meaningful impact using ADUs on, let's say, affordability or housing supply is to make it pretty wide open. And so it's really important when we start making a policy to be able to say, is this going to be wide open enough? And being able to test those hypotheses, that's sort of invaluable, because why are you going to spend so much time making a policy that's only going to deliver you 10 units in your community? So being able to play with this is invaluable. But then on the other side, you're only going to get people to build ADUs if they have the power to see that it can work for them. One of the biggest ways to motivate an accessory dwelling unit policy is through education and allowing people to see what other people are doing. And that's why I'm really excited for Abhijeet to present this next piece, which is more focused on the stewardship of our housing stock, improvements in your home, but also has a cool feature where you can see what your neighbors are doing.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that sounds a really interesting project there. In fact, most of my friends who just bought properties in San Francisco, that's exactly how they started. They want to see how was the development in the neighborhood and so forth. There is one thing that I would love to end with, to wrap the full circle around GRM. Today, Dominion Energy talked about energy efficiency programs. There is an application that we just launched to enable people to find those rebates right now in California. It really puzzled me that 50 million worth of rebates annually are left on the table every year in the country. And these are programs by the local governments to incentivize homeowners to install energy efficient appliances. So we partnered with a Bay Area organization called BayREN, and we actually have an application that instantly provides rebate information when you are installing home appliances or upgrading home appliances. Not only does it do that, and we actually don't need to do a demo, Linda. I think we've sufficiently captured what a computational law system can be. This system can not only give you the rebate information, but also generate the permits for you right on the spot so that you can download and apply online if you want, or apply in person if you want. That is Symbium's foray into open transactions. In the future, we expect to partner with cities to directly write into the permit tracking systems to interact with them, to not only make it easier for applicants to submit these permits, but also for the city to review these permits very quickly. Because just as with the case of San Francisco, we want to provide a certificate of validity that this project has met all the requirements. You only need to verify the discretionary requirements right now. That is the future that Symbium is trying to put forth for the public. One thing that I do want to mention, and thanks Mel and Vaughn for doing that poll for people who are interested in getting Symbium to Virginia. In fact, Linda, if you could turn over to the slides, that's exactly our plan for this year. Symbium wants to be in Virginia. And as I said, what we need, so this is a very gargantuan task. It's not a small feat. We are going to make that happen. What we need to make this happen is, as I mentioned, partnerships with local governments, contacts in local governments, and coalition of governments. And if you are one, or if you know somebody in those governments, please send us an email at hello@symbium.com. We would love to connect with you and bring this service to Virginia as soon as possible. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Abhijeet. Thank you, Linda. We really appreciate you all coming to us from the West Coast today and giving us this information, and thank you for your efforts and your desire to be here in the Commonwealth. We look forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Look forward to connecting with you.
All right, thank you, everyone. I'm here with some information about where to head next. 2:15. There are going to be 2 breakout rooms in Salon 3 and 4 and Salon and Blue Point room. Those are the 20 by 20 sessions, also known as Pechakucha. So those are your peers pitching their innovative ideas. So definitely give them a good audience and join us in those 2 breakout rooms. People who are presenting should go right now to those rooms so we can get you prepared. And then those presentations start at 2:15. And there's a third thing going on concurrently to that, which is more demonstrations here in the Experience Lab. Thank you.